Welcome to a new story for a new week, the Earth Story Podcast. My name is Will Rand, and it is a gift to share this time with you. This week, our stories come from wildly disparate, yet intimately connected places on our planet. We hear from the swaying and fading colors of the coral reefs off the coast of Belize, the Northern Barrier Reef, the second largest in the world. The reef can teach us many things about what it means to live in harmony with our neighbors. Embodying the sheltering power of community, the reef can disperse the wrath of a stormy sea to the grateful thanks of a vulnerable shoreline. Coral reefs consist of many different independent organisms, but they are really only one body. When any one part of the body is sick, the whole body suffers. And when the whole body suffers, the larger body of our world aches. This week, we honor the reefs of our world. We grieve their disappearance, their bleaching, and their suffering. We tell their story so that it might not be forgotten, and with the hope that our human family might be moved to midwife their rebirth. Enter Anna. All the way across the Atlantic, our story continues in Middelburg, a small seaside town in the province of Zeeland, a peninsula in the southern part of the Netherlands. Anna Vroegindeweij has a heart for the well-being of all life on this earth. Her fascination with all creatures pervades every part of her life and has empowered her work in the field of biomimicry. Formerly trained as a product designer at the Art Academy in Utrecht, Anna learned to seek out the natural world as a teacher. She finds the earth to be an expert in design and engineering to a degree of intricacy and complexity that baffles the most brilliant of human minds. Anna is on a quest to help restore the oyster reefs in the North Sea. Thank you for being here, Anna.
I've just always had this innate fascination with the natural world around us. Could never really see why people were thinking of it as such a separate thing. And I remember from a very young age, I've had this very specific fascination with fungi. And I remember learning about mycelium, and that is basically the end of all cycles, or at least that's how it's being portrayed, but it's also the beginning. Like, fungi is the thing that connects everything. And you can go on like a very philosophical journey if you start talking about fungi. I remember very specifically when I was about 9-10 years old, I actually went to Vancouver with my family. And I was sitting on the ground and I had this bag of peanuts. And I saw all of these different holes and I didn't really know what was inside of them. But I just sat there and just started enjoying it. It just really felt like I was being, I don't know, it's just very, very connected. I didn't really know what I was doing. It was very intuitive. And after like an hour, like these little heads would start popping up. And apparently there were groundhogs. There was a whole family of them, and I was sitting on top of their den. They were curious too, and I just sat there and just being calm. And then one came out to go investigate. I gave it a peanut. And it just looked at me like, I don't know if I fully trust you, but this does smell really good, or at least that's my interpretation of it. And I just started this dialogue. It might have been all in my head. I don't know. But before I knew it, they started to trust me, and like more of them would start coming out, and they were just walking all over me. And then from the groundhogs, then the squirrels came, and then I had this whole Disney princess moment. All of these animals coming to me because I was giving out food. And I just felt so happy. And I remember looking up and like a couple hundred of meters away, my mother was just coming out of the camper van and just looking at me like, how did you get into this situation? And yeah, I don't know, it just inspired me so much. And so many animals came too. Like, I remember this ginormous moose being there out of nowhere, just standing like a meter away from me, just me being very, very quiet. And there was a coyote as well, but I just really felt like I was just becoming part of this system, and I never really lost that. I'm a product designer. I studied at the Art Academy in Utrecht, so here in the Netherlands. And during my projects, I came into contact with biomimicry and biodesign. And that so perfectly aligned with all of my fascinations with the natural world and just everything around that. And there were just so many little things. I just thought like, oh my God, this inspires me on such like a personal level as well. So for my graduation project, I was looking at our surroundings, and usually I'm just looking at different systems. So I'm just, because I don't want to design, as a product designer, you get taught to make stuff, to use materials, and to make something cool, for example. But for me, also from my personal ethics, I didn't want to just create something to add it to the huge pile of stuff that's already out there. I really wanted to look at a system and work within that system to actually find maybe like a lost piece or a hole in there that you could not only make something for, but actually benefit so much more and be part of something so much greater than you initially thought you were going to be. But yeah, where do you start then? Because that's a pretty big ask. So I was actually talking to this friend, and she's a marine biologist. Well, in front of the Netherlands, especially the part that I live right now in Zealand, you have the North Sea. I think the beach is about 10-minute drive from where I live. You can tell that the water quality isn't great. Every single time that you're swimming, there's a lot of algae. A lot of algae blooms, also toxic algae, so you have to be careful of where you swim. There are a lot of jellyfish. And that's actually where this started. I was like, okay, why can I notice such a difference just within a single year? And I started talking to her, and she told me that because of ocean acidification, the water is becoming more sour. There's much more algae, and that's because our ecosystems aren't happy. And it's like, okay, but why isn't it? Is it just like the normal story of, okay, humans came there, started fishing, taking everything and just destroying everything, and now it's just nothing there anymore? And she looked at me and she's like, yeah, well, they took away all of the oysters. Like, what do you mean all of the oysters? Like, yeah, well, oysters are the reason why our seas are healthy. They are a keystone species, is what it's called. And then I started to look into it. It's just so interesting, because this tiny creature that doesn't even have a brain, or at least we don't really know if it has a brain, can filter, like a single oyster can filter up to 200 liters of water a day. And it takes out algae because that it's food, but it also takes out CO2. Oysters will take out the CO2 and turn it into like a solid material. So it cannot re-enter the water, and it cannot re-enter the atmosphere as well. And there's so many other ecosystem functions that it performs. I mean, oysters have the natural sense of like clumping together and forming these 3D structures, these 3D rift structures, and that's basically the basis of about 90% of all life in our sea. This is specifically this ecosystem, but you can look at different ecosystems all over the world and they work in a similar way. If it is corals, if it is oysters, if it's something else, you need that type of reef structure in order to have life, because that's where fish can lay their eggs, that's where plants can grow on top of. That's just the way that it works. And the only thing that oysters need is a solid structure to attach themselves to. But what did we do with all of the solid structures? So all of the rocks, all of the, also seagrass, we took it out. So many fish lay their eggs there. So many animals make it their home. And we just took it out. And also the rocks, we fished them out because our nets kept getting stuck on them. And now the oysters didn't have like something to begin on. Because, I mean, oysters have everything that they need, even though they're such a tiny creature, to have so much impact. So they filter out all of the excess nitrogen, phosphorus, you name it. They filter it out. They filter out excess carbon. They are literally the wombs of our ocean. So yeah, why not help them? Because we don't have to generate these huge machines who are going to do it. No, we have something that already works. But how are we going to help them? So that's how I started thinking about biomimicry as well. Because if you know a little bit about biomimicry, it's really looking at, what nature does best. Because nature has found a way to be so extremely efficient, to work within a larger system, to not take too much, and everything has a purpose. There's so much we can learn from that. I mean, it's billion years of evolution, billion years of knowledge. It's just there for us to, look into, to get our teachings out of. And there's just so much information. It's just about connecting the right information, the right mechanism with the right question that we're asking. I also really started to look at it from like a non-human design perspective. So what does the oyster need? And the oyster doesn't really need that much. It needs a solid structure. It needs to not be covered by sedimentation. It needs to have enough water flow and not any disruption. So we are doing a lot in our North Sea. It's very, very busy. We have a lot of windmills. We have a lot of offshore work that's being done. We have a lot of fishermen that are fishing there. So there's a lot of things you need to take into account. Like, where would the best place for an oyster be? So then you start looking at the system, and it's just like, okay, well, there is one place in the North Sea, even though it's not ideal, but you're not allowed to fish there, and that's between the windmills. And the windmills, that's, those parks are growing and growing and growing. So that would be a place that they could just stay undisturbed, at least from fishermen, and be able to create their own ecosystem. They just need a jump start. But that comes with its own hassle and their own negatives as well, because windmills make a lot of noise, a lot of vibrations, and oysters are really like that. Okay, so I needed a structure that could stay above the sediment, because there's a lot of loose sediment everywhere. I needed a structure that would provide some safety, and I needed a structure that, that works in every single different direction. And then I started looking at nature, and then I found the glass sea sponge. Because the glass sea sponge is a fascinating creature on its own. I mean, it's able to create glass without any heat. This glass sea sponge has found a way to be as sturdy as it possibly can without using too much material, but also staying above the sediment, because there's a little bit of wiggle in there. So it will dig itself out. So it will stay above the sedimentation without needing to actually glue itself down, because otherwise it would just get covered. So it's able to perform better, and it also has all of these chambers. They're called oscula. It's able to passively also direct water flow, which is one of the other things that oysters need. Yeah, so looking at these different structures, so the spikes, the spicula, and looking at these oscula, these chambers, to be able to promote enough water flow, but also so that it can stay above the sedimentation. Looking to that's how I designed the shape at the end of my oyster spot. Like, okay, well, this is great. This shape could work. It's easy to produce in bulk as well, because you can just make a mold out of it. This is great. During that time, I was working for this company. It's called Blue Blocks. The cool thing about this place is that they have laboratories specifically for designers to be able to create their own materials. So I just started developing there, and I was just looking at, okay, how can I make a material that oysters actually want to sit on top of? And then I saw that oysters, even though They don't have any eyes. They cannot really think. They do have this behavior that they want to sit close to other oysters. So they do somehow have these receptors that they're able to recognize their own species. Okay, but this is perfect because there's so much waste, so much oyster shells that are being thrown away. And this is a beautiful calcium-rich material that you can use as a biomaterial. So why not use the oyster shells themselves? Specifically, I found this one company that actually grows oysters in the North Sea. So it's still part of that ecosystem. And it has a restaurant as well, which has oyster waste. So I started collecting these oyster shells and started experimenting with my material. And I actually put out the first samples of it about 2 years ago now. And from what I've seen up till now, they're still there. They're still intact, eco-friendly, I hope, because, they're actually like worms and seaweeds that have started to grow on top of it. And fish don't seem to mind it. So the whole reason that it's called the Oyster Spot is because juvenile oysters, so tiny, tiny oysters, are called spat. And it's actually the phase before they attach themselves. I mean, if you just think about it, they have to find like a solid structure, even though they're floating in the ocean. They're not really able to swim. But they are able to sense, from what I've gathered, they will find a spot that they like. And they're able to attach themselves with this glue. Just think about it. It's a glue that has to harden within seconds. Because otherwise it would just float away again. And it has to be underwater. Like, what an amazing type of glue would that be? There are different types of oysters. And especially the European flat oyster is not doing very well. I believe it in the last 100 years, about 85 to 95% has, it's just gone. And that's from overfishing, that's from pollution, that's from introduction of invasive species. A lot of different reasons why they're gone. What we do know is that, because they are the keystone species in this whole ecosystem. So it's kind of like almost if you have a structure and you take away the bottom stone, like everything will just collapse. So we do know that they're very, very important. And we also know that we're certainly missing them. This inherent feeling of I really want to do something. I mean, it's something about my generation as well, because everybody wants to, help out the climate crisis, getting ourselves out there, finding ways to feel more secure in our future as well. But yeah, I just think that there's so much knowledge. There's so many beautiful things around us. And if you just start to dive a little bit into that, there are just so many practical solutions as well. It's just one simple, it's if you're in the world of biomimicry, then it's a very simple example, because you can look at structure and shape, but you can also look at the mechanical side and more like the on this molecular level you can look at it. But also look at whole systems. I mean, if you just look at an ecosystem, everything has value. Everything has a purpose. Nothing is wasted. It's like, how can nature have a system that works so well and is just thought of in a circular way instead of a linear way? How are we not able to do that if we're supposed to be this very smart, organism? Like, how is nature able to do something that we are not, and why are we not learning from it? It's, in the end, it's for everyone. I mean, more oysters means also that the storms will be less bad, because it will help prevent coastal erosion. The water quality will be a lot better, which is better for our like health in general. The fish that we eat from those seas will be a lot more healthy. So there are just so many long-term effects that we can start to see from this. And then working in not only this economical circular system, but also this ecosystem that's already out there. The oyster already knows what to do. It just needs to have like a jump start. And if we're able to give it that, but also only that, so it has a jump start, and then you don't have to do anything with it anymore. I don't know. I only see benefits. I only see positive sides, but
So when I experienced the coral reefs for the first time, it was a pilgrimage. Part of me knew that I needed to go there while there was still some life. And for my own life, I just knew that I needed that. And what you've shared with me about how, literally creating a spot for the oysters to build a new reef, to build a new home, that what you experience when you go to an ecosystem like a reef in the Caribbean that is dying, that's not the last word. That's not the final, that's not the end for that home. But at the same time, there is this grief about a place that is dying. When you feel how much warmer the water is, and knowing these things that you've shared about, like the acidification and how the chemical balance of the ocean is off. It's not how it's supposed to be. There is a sense of lament and a sense of grief, and while there were moments when I was swimming around on the reef where I felt the life, and I felt like I was interacting with this place that was a part of me that I had not yet known. I also felt the death in myself as well. I felt life recognizes death. There's something in us that sees something else that is dying. And, what I was grappling with after that was, what does it mean to see a whole ecosystem die? To in our lifetime just fathom the fact that a whole body part of the earth, a whole organ, a whole very necessary part of the larger body of life that holds us was dying. And then to meet you and learn about the ways that we can come alongside and be companions to, and create places for and be gardeners for new life to help the system recover and be restored.
I mean, that's just it, Yeah, just being aware that everything is part of this system. And even though we like to think of things as separate, because that makes it understandable for us, it's not. Nothing is linear, even though we're very, very, we're forcing it to be. It's not. And I mean, at the end of the day, if you really think about it, even though ecosystems are having a really hard time and diversity is going down, at the end of the day, it will recover. Maybe in a different way. Maybe new things will start to be created. I mean, this is also part of this whole cycle. Any decision that you make will help. Like, just try to be the person that you want to be. And if you want to be something or someone that is part of this bigger system, is not ignorant of it, trying to find those, loopholes and trying to learn as much. Because the world is so rich and so beautiful, and there's so many things. We just need to find a way that it works within our current system as well, so that the people who actually do have the power find the motivation to look at it as well. Every single choice that you make, even from little things like sorting out your garbage or trying not to use your AC as much, or like showering a little bit less, like every single little bit, even though it doesn't feel like you're doing a lot. Just you being aware of it, you being mindful of it. That already helps. Just go out there, look at nature, see how cool everything is, and try to learn from it. Yeah.
Fading Radiance, Coralessence was written for the Mostly Modern Ensemble. This ensemble performed the premiere at the Mostly Modern Festival that takes place in Middelburg, the Netherlands. This is where I met Anna. I wanted to create a piece that honored the coral reefs of the world after having a profound encounter with the Northern Barrier Reef in January of 2024. You have heard excerpts from this work throughout the episode. The whole of this piece is held in the context of light streaming down through the water. The light is primordial. It was there before life existed and will remain even if life should cease to exist. The different episodes of the piece swim with the many exuberant, bright, and colorful fish, sway with the Euphilia coral, trace the outlines of the brain coral, and wait stoically with the elkhorn and staghorn coral. In the middle of the piece, there is an elegy that mourns the suffering of the reef that I felt so tenderly while spending time with this beloved ecosystem. The final moments of the piece recognize the life energy of the swaying, dancing, and swimming reef life alongside the dead and dying pieces of the ecosystem. Before and beyond, the light still streams down. You will hear more from Anna in the time to come. You can learn more about her work at Vroegindeweij.com. You will see examples of her protoglass sea sponge and how it can provide a home for thousands of oysters. I hope that you will take time to admire the ways that she is working to bring restoration and new life to this world. Thank you for joining us from wherever you are. Your listening presence allows these stories to live on in ways that will never fully be known. This has been a new story for a new week, the Earth Story podcast. May you have courage in the week to come and know that this earth depends upon your unfolding story.